against racism.
Jesse Jackson said he dedicated both heart and soul to the fight for justice.
We must put a diploma in one hand, symbolizing knowledge and wisdom, and put a voter registration card in that other hand, symbolizing power and responsibility.
Born in 1941 in South Carolina, Jackson grew up under Jim Crow laws. By the time he'd graduated from college, he was involved in the civil rights movement. In 1965, he joined Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s inner circle, taking on a leadership role. He was with Dr. King in Memphis when he was assassinated a few years later.
High school graduation.
Ordained as a minister, Jackson began Operation Push in Chicago in 1971 and created his political pulpit, pressuring companies to hire more black workers and extend business ties with the African American community. In 1984, he founded the National Rainbow Coalition and launched his first presidential run. The campaign raised his profile, but anti-Jewish comments sparked a scandal that damaged his reputation. After losing a second presidential run in 1988, he kept his spot on the political stage.
We are a humane people. We fight for justice and fairness.
Jackson delivered rousing speeches at Democratic conventions.
Keep hope alive.
And he supported candidates, including his son, Jesse Jackson Jr., who was elected to the U.S. House. In the 1980s and 90s, he helped negotiate the release of American hostages held abroad. And in later years, he protested for victims of police violence, from Ferguson to Chicago to Baton Rouge.
Stop the violence. Save the nation.
In 2017, Jackson revealed he'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And while the disease may have slowed him down, he said it wouldn't stop him from his mission, instilling hope in the hopeless. Michael George, CBS News.
Jesse Jackson is the figure who probably most represents the transition from civil rights politics to electoral politics for African Americans.
Jesse Jackson was born in Greenville, South Carolina on October 8, 1941.
Riding the back of a bus, having black and white water fountains, not being able to eat in a restaurant with white people. He saw those injustices, and I think it is a lesson that he never forgot his entire life.
In high school, he was class president and a football star. He went on to the Agricultural and Technical College of North Carolina.
Jackson met his wife, Lavinia Brown, while he was in college. The couple married in 1962. Jackson and his wife had 5 children together.
Jackson earned a sociology degree in 1964.
And he excelled, but there were demonstrations, there were marches, there were protests. He was caught up in that movement.
After college, Jackson went to work with Dr. Martin Luther King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
He joined him in Selma, Alabama on that horrific march and clash with the police.
He was with King when King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee at the Lorraine Motel.
After King's assassination in April 1968, Jackson split from the SCLC leadership. He moved to Chicago and in 1971 formed Operation Push.
To make sure that white store owners in the black community did their part of hiring black clerks. You're going to either hire some African Americans in your store or we're going to have a boycott. And he did that, and it was quite effective.
Jackson's efforts generated national and international headlines, and in 1979 he traveled to South Africa to speak out against apartheid.
And Jesse Jackson came to Israel to support the Palestinian cause. He starts using the same phrases he used in the United States. I am somebody. Say it with me. I am somebody. And they're repeating this in Arabic.
In 1984, he formed the Rainbow Coalition to fight for equal rights for everyone. That group later merged with Operation Push. That same year, Jackson ran for president. He came in third in the Democratic primaries. Then in 1988, he ran and lost again.
He told me, he says, I know I'll never get elected president. I know it's not possible for a black man to get elected president. And of course, that wasn't true.
When the returns came in 2008 and Obama was on the stage, there were shots of Jackson with tears in his eyes.
Jackson is a Baptist minister and civil rights leader who continues to fight for equality. His oldest son, Jesse Jackson Jr., served in the U.S. House of Representatives.
The friend of the downtrodden, friend of African Americans, and that's the role he's played. He is always there. When there's trouble, Jesse's going to come.
The PSP, which is known as a very rare but very aggressive neurodegenerative disorder. It's reported that he was hospitalised in November of 2025 in relation to PSP, but then was discharged in December of 2025 to the care of his family in an acute care facility where he would continue his recovery. It's reported, though, that he did pass away peacefully. He was surrounded by those that loved him. He was 84 and will be looked upon as not only a giant of the civil rights movement, but a giant of US politics, a man who, through his drive, through his determination, through his resolve, was able to pave the way for many of the black politicians who came after. This is a man who went for president, for the Democratic nominee for president twice, in 1984 and 1988, memorably in 1988. And it's hard to imagine that without Jesse Jackson being a trailblazer in that regard, that we would perhaps have, in a few years later, in 2008, Barack Obama as the first and only at this stage black president of the United States of America. I've got a statement here from the Reverend Jesse Jackson's family, which has just arrived to us here at Sky News. I'm going to read it out to you in full. And it reads, "It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of civil rights leader and founder of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the Honourable Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. He died peacefully on Tuesday morning, surrounded by his family. His unwavering commitment to justice, equality and human rights helped shape a global movement for freedom and dignity. A tireless change agent, he elevated the voices of the voiceless from his presidential campaigns in the 1980s to mobilising millions to register to vote, leaving an indelible mark on history. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is survived by his family, Jacqueline, their children, Santita, Jesse Jr., Jonathan, Yusuf, Jacqueline, daughter Ashley Jackson, and grandchildren. He was preceded in death by his mother, Helen Burns Jackson, his father, Noah Louis Robinson, and stepfather, Charles Henry Jackson. They go on. Our father was a servant leader, not only to our family, but to the oppressed, the voiceless, and the overlooked around the world. We shared him with the world, and in return, the world became part of our extended family. His unwavering belief in justice, equality, and love uplifted millions, and we ask you to honour his memory by continuing the fight for the values he lived in. They then go on to tell us that there will be some public observances held in Chicago. Final arrangements are to be made to celebrate the life of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who, at the age of 84, has passed away peacefully, his family tell us, at home in Chicago, surrounded by loved ones. We are looking here at a photograph of the Reverend Jesse Jackson in the 80s with President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, at a time when high-profile politicians who were black of his stature really didn't exist. Jesse Jackson was a person who led the way for many of the black politicians in the United States who would come after him. And he's a man who learnt from being a protege of the great civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. He continued his work in civil rights and human rights since the early days of that civil rights movement in the United States, starting in the late 50s and early 60s, learning from Dr. Martin Luther King, who, of course, was the architect of this idea of nonviolence, of working together, of seeing a person's humanity. And the Reverend Jesse Jackson learned from that and helped to overturn the rank racist segregation that was endemic in the southern United States.